Hey everyone, how's it going? Nick here. So today we're going to be looking at volumetrics, how to set up volumetric lighting and how to troubleshoot some of the problems that you may encounter when setting them up. So this is my basic scene without any volumetrics or anything like that. There's just the, there is just the literally nothing, I think. Not even the post-process volume now. I think I removed everything. There is a post-process volume or whatever. I'm gonna leave it there. But what I want to do, I want to add in height fog. So from here, I'm gonna look for height fog, exponential height fog, and drag that one in. Right. So when you increase or decrease the fog density, you will see that nothing is really gonna happen for the volumetric lights. The reason is that you need to go and look for volumetric, and there is something you not gotta tick here to make it show, which is volumetric fog. When you hit volumetric fog, you will see that now magically the fog is happening. Now you can have, you have a lot of parameters. You have the scattering distribution and all sorts of things like the albedo, how it's colored, and etc, etc. Now you can go and look those parameters by yourself. There's also extinction scale, all this sort of thing. For now, we're gonna keep it a bit simple. So the fog is really dense. I'm gonna reduce it a little bit to something like this. Okay. Let's say this is what I need. Now, things to take into account. Lights can have a value that can increase or decrease the intensity of the volumetrics. So if I hit this light, I have this blueprint set up and I have the scattering intensity. Okay, the scattering intensity, see, as I decrease it, it doesn't affect the volumetric fog anymore. And as I increase it, gradually will affect it more and more. So that's one thing to take into account, okay? So you can go art direct your lights, a little bit better like this. Let's say I want this one, this one's it's a big street light, so I wanted to, cast way more volumetrics. So I will crank this up and, it's gonna look better. But however, like a small light, like something like this is much smaller. I don't want it to cast so much volumetric fog. And so, I would, for example, reduce it, which is where I was looking for volumetric. Volumetric scatter intensity right now it's 10, actually it's super high. And I can, go and reduce it in the actual blueprint, not in here, because this is a blueprint, it's not a static mesh. So that's one thing. The other thing is distance. So the further you go out, you see that the volumetrics disappear, right? So this one I can see it, that one I cannot see it. Like they cull with distance, right? You see, that one's gone now. And you might want, depending on your scene, like in my case, I only see this one and I see it barely, right? Like there are also these in the back, which I do want to show. Well, in that case, we're gonna still go into the fog. So we're gonna grab our fog actor and we're gonna look for distance. View distance, there we go. Now it's 6,000. If I reduce it, more stuff is gonna disappear. This is for optimization. But if you're doing single renders or you're doing whatever, like a video, you probably don't care and you want to crank up these settings a bit so that it looks better because you're doing beauty renders, right? Yeah, it's not a game. So you increase it, and here I hit the cap at 10,000. But as you can see, there is also this one in the back, and I still can't see it. So I'm gonna crank it to, let's say, 12. There you go, and now I can see it too. As you notice, though, as you might be noticing, there is a lot of flickering now. This is because whenever you increase the view distance, you have to think of the fog volume whenever is, like adding volumetrics or whatever. It's adding voxels, right? It's like little squares that scatter, like that span all across the scene until the distance you decide. The problem is the amount of them stays the same. So if you have, let's say, 100 voxels per, like in 1 meter, and then you increase that volume, is effectively like stretching it, like as if it's a texture. So the textile density will also become, like if you stretch like a 1 meter by 1 meter, like a 1K texture, like, and you make it like 10 meters, well, then you're gonna have a much more pixelated version of that texture. And voxels that make up the volumetrics are exactly the same. And right now, let's say I put it to 50,000, you'll see that now it's not just noisy. Now it's an absolute mess. Look at this shit. Like, this is crazy, right? Like, who would want something like this? However, there's a console command that you can put which will solve this problem, which is this one. r.VolumetricFog.GridPixelSize equal 1. Careful here. Currently it's 4 because I hard-coded it into the engine, and I will show you later how. Normally it's 8. If you didn't touch anything, it's gonna be 8. And the lower you go, the more the resolution. And now if I input grid pixel size 1, it will effectively reduce how big those voxels are. And you will see now it's a lot more stable. Now the FPS tanked, but it's a lot more stable now. It's much better. Still 50,000, it's kind of crazy. So let's make, no, it was, sorry, was it 500,000? That's insane. You know, you will probably never need a fog volume that goes that far. Normally what I would recommend is to actually start from the max. Okay, I still cannot see that one. Okay, great. I'm gonna go on 12,000, like, no, actually 11,000. Normally you wanna go as far as you need to go and then stop with this, you know, for renders at least. So that you got your render that works. You don't need to go too crazy with other stuff. Right now you can see I have something like 10 FPS, by the way, because I'm using the grid pixel size at something like 1, which is pretty ridiculous. And I'm getting like, yeah, see, 12 FPS. This is absolutely unacceptable. But if you're doing a beauty render or something, it doesn't matter, does it? Because it doesn't. It's just gonna compute it and just be done with it, and you're gonna get the same FPS in video. However, for working with this, I always leave it around 4 because I feel like it's pretty good. Like, it doesn't really impact performance. Like, see, it's 75 FPS now. I put 4. However, like, just to show you what I mean, if I put this thing on like 200, you will see that, you see now it's almost gone. I mean, it's so pixelated. The voxels are so big. It's like it's crazy, right? Even at 50 or something like that, you can see. There you go. Now you can start seeing the big squares. You see them? So those are voxels. Let's make that maybe 30. Yeah. You see, it's like you can see the individual voxels almost, right? You can almost clearly tell them apart. Look at that. It's crazy, right? So going back to it, I would then, you know, leave this at a comfortable 4, which is good. Doesn't impact performance too much. Still gives you good results. So I would leave it at that. Now, to something more important, like, oh yeah, but Nick, like, every time I, you know, restart my engine, the shit goes back to 8. Yes, that is correct, because this is, you know, whatever you input in this console is temporary. Like, if you stop motion blur, if you decrease the, you know, the voxel pixel size or whatever, it's all temporary. So what I advise you to do is go onto any of these folders, like any folder that you have in your project, just right click on it and show in Explorer. This is gonna open the window of the Explorer. Like, you go back to your project, you go into the config folder. So for me, the project is called Vertex Gap Class 30. Go in the config folder, open the default Engine.ini. Sorry. Yes. Default Engine.ini. And then you go into the render settings. In my case, I have a couple commands that are extra that you probably don't have. Are the nanite allow tessellation equals 1 and the nanite tessellation equal 1. This is to allow tessellation for nanite, and this one. Be careful, because when you write it here, actually in the Engine.ini, you're gonna have to it's not gonna be space 4. So normally you would put r.VolumetricFog.GridPixelSize space 4. In this case, you need to put equal 4, like, all together, because it's a way that it reads it. So it's just the way that they codes, like, that you have to code it. Anyway, as you can see, they're all the same, by the way. So put it here and save, close, and you're good. And Unreal is saving. Be right back. And we are back. Another way, so you're probably gonna want to set up like a scene where I am assuming you're gonna be rendering later on, right? So you're probably gonna be setting up a movie render queue. Like, I don't know if you have it already activated, but if you don't, look for movie render queue. And it's a plugin. You're gonna have to tick it on, and then, of course, restart the engine. And movie render queue is something that is very useful, because a lot of people just screenshot, but you really don't want to just screenshot. Like, you actually want to learn to use the movie render queue, because there is a whole host of parameters that you can tweak that you normally don't tweak. You normally wouldn't tweak, rather. Now, give me a second, because I'm gonna go and set up my scene back the way it used to be, because now it's all messed up, because I undid some of my things that I did already. And we are back, and now, first things first, in order to use the movie render queue, you're gonna need a Cinecam. I already have a few set up, but in case you don't know, Cinecams are a little bit different. Actually, they're quite different from regular camera, like, which is this one. The regular camera actor, right, is the one that you use in game mostly, as in, like, when you possess a player, the camera is gonna be shoved right in the head if it's first person, or behind at an offset if it's third person. But in this case, we're gonna need the Cinecamera actor, which is this one, right? Has a whole bunch of different parameters that you can go have a look at. There are honestly a ton of videos about Cinecamera actors, so I suggest you go look into one of those. But I already have a few set up, and now all we need is a sequencer. So I already made a folder in my content browser called sequences, and I'm just gonna right click and look for sequencer. And there you go, get a level sequence. I'm gonna call it, I'm not sure what's the correct nomenclature for it. I just normally call it SQ underscore now main cam. Let's call it that. And I double click it. So this is gonna open, you don't see it because of my other screen, but it's gonna open the sequencer. So what you wanna do next is add, you go on actor to sequencer, and you look for Cine. And there you go, Cinecamera actor. I'll hit this one. And you will see it create camera cuts. Like, now right click on the camera cut, because I only want one frame here. I don't want multiple. So I'm gonna go on properties, section range start, I'll leave it on 0, but section range end, I'll leave it on 1 instead. So it will, as you can see, kill all the other frames. It's gonna leave me just with one, this one. Now, all I need to do here, since I do not want to tweak any of this, these are, by the way, you can track multiple things into this and have them keyframed, but I don't want to do that. Because I just need one single frame. Now I can hit that button right there, render this movie to a video, and it will open the movie render queue. So this is the most crucial step. Now we want to set some parameters. You can also save them, like I did save some for testing. But if you, of course, you won't have them saved. You want to open it up and set either JPEG or PNG sequence, whatever it is you want. This will also be the same for videos, unless I don't think you can actually export videos directly. I don't know. I always export a sequence of images and then I just slap them together inside DaVinci. But yeah, in this case, I'll just do a JPEG, leave it on deferred rendering. You want to add the anti-aliasing. I don't think it's there by default. Like, you just can hit this drop down and add it. And you want to have this really depends. This is going to be the sample counts. This is quite important for quite a few things. Like, it's going to build the lighting much better when you do this. And also, if you use path tracing, which I won't, but if you use path tracing, it's going to be the samples that the tracer is going to run at. In my case, I'm just going to leave it on 164, which is fine. Override the anti-aliasing on none. And render warm-up frames, this is extremely important, and I normally, this really depends on the simulations that you have running. I just have the smoke mostly. I just set it, like, let's say you set it to 80 and 80. So this will basically mean that it will render 80 frames as an engine warm-up and 80 as a render warm-up count, which will start all of the simulations, fix all of the, well, not fix, but like, it's gonna normalize all of the whatever exposure meter you have, and in our case it's also gonna correctly display the volumetrics, and correctly display them, but it's gonna start the volumetrics and then stabilize them so that they don't look weird and faceted. Okay, and that's gonna help also with the temporal sample count. This is also gonna fix those. Oh god, this auto saving again. Is gonna also fix those volumetrics and not make them look faceted, because if you don't do that, your volumetrics are gonna look exactly like this. Let me go get it. Your volumetrics will look like shite. Nope, that's not it. That's not it either. Sorry, I did a few renders. Somehow I cannot find the one with the messed up volumetrics. I was doing a few examples, but yeah, okay, well, they're gonna look terrible. I can show you actually, leaving the temporal sample count at 1 and not render warm-up frames. And you will see, let me actually get rid of all my previous renders so I can redo this. You will see that it's gonna look very strange. I also added console variables. This is important because it's gonna do what I said we were talking about before. You will not see this. Just hit this drop down menu and select console variables. Click it and add a console variable to it. For now, I just added 1. Normally you would add like quite a few, to be honest, for beauty renders and videos and stuff like that. But just put this one in without the number. The number goes in here, and I'm gonna leave it on actually 0.2 because I want it to be very, very high resolution for the fog grid pixel size. Then I'm just gonna hit accept. On output, I just left everything the same. I didn't touch anything here. Just hit accept, hit render, and you will see now when it's done rendering that the... Oh no, it did warm up. Ah, I didn't accept, I think. No, I did accept. Come on. I'm gonna be right back, hang on. Yeah, so apparently I did not accept, or I just reverted back to what it was, but I reverted back to 1, actually 0 warm-up frames and all, and you will see how horrible this looks. Like, this is just, there is no smoke, you know, coming out here. These are all faceted. This is rendered correctly, because in the end, the grid size is correct, but it's all kind of, you know, voxelized here anyway. It's not, it's really strange. The exposure is a bit weird. These are completely and utterly exploded, like they just look like a failed abortion. Anyway, so we're gonna ignore this entirely and go back in here and hit 64 on the temporal sample count and override anti-aliasing on none again and render warm-up frames, and I'll set it to 80 and 80. Perfect. And now you will see that, actually let me double check it applied it, because okay, yes, perfect. So if I render now, you will see that it's gonna start building up the frames. See, engine warm-up frames, and now we should see that the smoke is that, yeah, there you go. The smoke is starting to come out here. Let me see, maybe I can make it bigger. Yeah, see, the smoke is starting to come out. Perfect. This thing, mind you that this thing is rotating as well, so you gotta be careful if you have like intermittent lights or something that, you know, you want it to be placed for the beauty shot in a specific manner, and you have rotators in place and like other light functions or whatever. You might want to fix those up to a point where you like, and then just freeze them, because, or find a frame that you like, because yeah, they're gonna, stuff is gonna move, right? Like, because this acts like a begin play, so, you know, it's gonna start all sims, start everything. So if you have, you know, stuff moving around, like they're gonna change. Also my ads here, this one changes, so you gotta keep that part in mind. Anyway, it's done rendering, and now it looks like this. As you can see, we have our smoke. This one's way softer. See these lights, I mean the light coming through the blades, volumetrics, way softer. This is not all pixelated to shit. This is looking great as well. Like, there is a minor like artifact in here. You could just increase the samples and like it, you know, it's gonna reduce it like even further. But I think at this point it's really good where it is. Like, eventually, you know, we're not path tracing this render, we're just like using the regular raster. So this is great. It works, and that will fix your volumetrics. Hope that helps.